If you really loved me, you wouldn't need a prenup, my girlfriend said after I proposed. I thought she was just upset. Then I came home to find everything I owned destroyed. The happiest day of my life lasted exactly 18 minutes. That's how long it took for my proposal to turn into the beginning of the worst week I'd ever lived through. My name is Ethan. I'm 36, own a small software consulting business in Seattle, and until last year, I genuinely believed I'd found the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Her name was Qley. We'd been together for almost 4 years. She was funny, outgoing, beautiful, and somehow made every room brighter the second she walked into it. My parents adored her. My friends thought we were perfect together. Even my business partners used to joke that I was finally settling down. Honestly, I believed it too. I'd already bought a house, built my business from scratch, spent nearly a decade working 80-hour weeks. Everything I owned had come from years of sacrifices. My dad used to tell me, "Protect what you've built, son. Love with your heart, but think with your head." At the time, I thought he was just being overly cautious. Turns out, he was trying to save me from exactly what happened next. About 6 months before I proposed, my attorney called me during our annual business review. He looked through my financial statements before saying something I'd never really considered. "Ethan, when you get married, you should have a prenup." I immediately frowned. "I don't want Qley thinking I don't trust her." He smiled. "A prenup isn't about expecting divorce. It's about deciding what's fair while you still love each other." I went home that night and thought about it for hours. The house? I'd bought it 3 years before meeting Qley. The company? I'd started it long before our relationship. If anything ever happened, those things represented years of work that had nothing to do with our marriage. Eventually, I agreed with my attorney, not because I expected us to fail, because I wanted everything to be transparent before we got married. 2 weeks later, I proposed. It happened on the waterfront just before sunset. Friends secretly watched from a distance. Her parents were hiding behind a nearby restaurant. Everything had been planned for months. When I got down on one knee, she started crying before I even opened the ring box. Yes, she practically tackled me. People around us clapped. Someone bought us champagne. For the next hour, it felt like we were living inside a movie. Then, on the drive home, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I spoke with my attorney. She smiled. "Oh." He suggested we sign a prenup before the wedding. The smile disappeared instantly. "What? It's nothing personal. I just want to protect the business and the house since I owned both before we met." She stared out the passenger window for several seconds. Finally, she quietly said, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't need a prenup." I reached for her hand. "It isn't about love. It feels like it. I'd sign one if our positions were reversed." She pulled her hand away. "So you think I'm after your money?" "I never said that. You didn't have to." The rest of the drive home happened in complete silence. Once we got inside, she walked straight upstairs. I figured she just needed time. The next morning she apologized. "I'm sorry. I overreacted. I was emotional." I hugged her. "So, we're okay?" She smiled. "Of course." Looking back, that smile wasn't relief. It was calculation. For the next 3 days, everything felt normal again. She kissed me goodbye before work, texted me throughout the day, even suggested venues for the wedding. I honestly believed we'd moved past the disagreement. Then Thursday happened. Around lunchtime she texted me, "Going shopping with Ashley after work." I replied, "Have fun." At 5:40 p.m., I pulled into my driveway. The front door was wide open. That immediately felt wrong. Qley was obsessive about locking doors. I ran inside. The living room looked like a tornado had passed through. The television was lying face down on the hardwood floor. Every picture frame had been smashed. Glass covered the hallway. The couch cushions had been sliced open with something sharp. White stuffing was everywhere. I stood frozen. Then I noticed the dining room. Every chair had been broken. Our engagement photos from just 3 days earlier had been ripped into tiny pieces. I ran upstairs. The bedroom was worse. My clothes had been cut apart. Every suit I owned was shredded. My watch collection worth nearly $30,000 had been smashed with what looked like a hammer. The custom gaming PC I'd built over years, destroyed. My laptop, broken clean in half. The television, gone. Then I walked into my home office. That's where it stopped feeling like random destruction. Every business file cabinet had been emptied. Contracts covered the floor. Hard drives had been smashed. Client folders were soaked in bleach. Even my father's old leather briefcase, the one he'd carried every day for 25 years before he passed away, had been slashed repeatedly with a knife. I dropped to my knees. Out of everything she'd destroyed, that hurt the most. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't rare. It was the last thing I had that still smelled faintly like him. Then I heard footsteps behind me. A police officer. "Sir, are you Ethan Parker?" "Yes. We received a domestic disturbance call." "I didn't call." He looked confused. "Your fiancée did." My stomach dropped. "What?" He slowly looked around the destroyed room. "She reported that you became violent after an argument." I stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" He opened a small notebook. "According to her statement, you destroyed the house during a fit of rage." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. I slowly turned back toward the shattered office. Then something caught my eye. Tucked high in the corner of the room, almost hidden behind a bookshelf, was the tiny blinking light from one of my indoor security cameras. The officer noticed me staring at the camera. "Is something wrong?" I pointed toward the blinking light. "I think my house recorded everything." He looked up. "You have security cameras?" "I installed them last year after someone broke into my garage." The officer immediately called another patrol unit and told everyone to stop touching anything. This just became an evidence scene. He helped me retrieve the recorder from the locked cabinet in my office. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The officer plugged it into his laptop. The footage started at 9:12 a.m. There was Qley. She waited until my car disappeared around the corner before pulling out her phone. 10 minutes later, two men I'd never seen before walked through my front door carrying toolboxes. The officer frowned. "Do you know them?" "No." Qley hugged both of them. Then she pointed around the house like a project manager giving instructions. One man walked upstairs carrying a crowbar. The other grabbed a sledgehammer from the toolbox. My stomach sank. For the next 3 hours, the cameras recorded everything. They laughed while smashing my television. One of them used my golf clubs to destroy my computer monitors. Qley stood in the middle of the living room filming the destruction with her own phone. At one point she actually complained. "No, don't break the windows. It has to look like he did it." The officer immediately paused the video. "What did she just say?" He rewound it. Again. "It has to look like he did it." The room went silent. Then the footage got even worse. Qley walked into my office carrying a stack of business contracts. She dumped them into the bathtub, poured bleach over them, then looked directly into her phone and laughed. "Let's see how your precious company survives this." The second man asked, "What about the prenup?" She rolled her eyes. "There won't be one. He'll either marry me after this, or he'll be too busy defending himself to fight over anything." The officer slowly closed the laptop. "I think your fiancée just talked herself into several felony charges." Then another officer walked into the room holding a small plastic evidence bag. "Sir, you might want to see this." Inside the bag was the engagement ring I'd given Qley. She hadn't taken it with her. She'd thrown it into the garbage disposal and tried to grind it into pieces. A camera Qley had completely forgotten existed, and if it had been recording all afternoon, then somewhere on that memory card was the truth about who had really destroyed everything I owned. The engagement ring wasn't completely destroyed. The garbage disposal had mangled it, but the diamond had come loose and settled inside the drain trap. The officer carefully placed it into an evidence bag. "Looks like she wanted to make a statement." I nodded. I think she already did. Over the next several days, detectives pulled footage from every camera in the house. Not just the indoor cameras, the doorbell camera, the garage camera, even my neighbor's security system. Together, they created a complete timeline. At 9:11 a.m., I left for work. At 9:24 a.m., Qley arrived with the two men. At 9:37 a.m., they started destroying the house. At 12:48 p.m., Qley changed into different clothes. Then she stood in the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and slapped herself across the face twice. She grabbed an ice pack from the freezer and held it against her cheek. One of the men looked confused. "What are you doing?" She laughed. "I need a bruise. So the police believe me." That clip alone made the detectives stop the video. One of them quietly said, "Well, that explains everything." But the biggest surprise came from Qley's own phone. She'd been recording behind-the-scenes videos of the destruction to send to a private group chat with two of her friends. The messages were recovered after police obtained a warrant. One read, "Watch this. He's going to think he lost everything." Another said, "He should have just signed the marriage papers without insulting me with that prenup." Then came the message that destroyed her defense. "After this, everyone will think he's abusive. He'll be begging me to settle." The prosecutors didn't need much else. Between the security footage, the text messages, and the false police report, the case was overwhelming. Within 2 weeks, Qley and the two men were arrested. They were charged with felony vandalism, conspiracy, filing a false police report, and insurance fraud after investigators discovered she'd also tried to file a homeowner's insurance claim using photos of the damage. My insurance company initially denied the claim because the destruction had been intentional. But after reviewing the criminal case, they worked directly with prosecutors and covered a large portion of the repairs before recovering the money from Qley through restitution. The criminal trial took almost a year. I testified for less than an hour. The jury watched the security footage exactly as I had. No edits, no commentary, just 3 people laughing while they destroyed someone's life. When Qley took the stand, she claimed she'd acted emotionally. The prosecutor played one final video. It showed her standing in my office before the destruction began. She looked directly at her phone and smiled. "If he thinks a prenup will protect him, he has no idea who he's marrying." The courtroom went silent. That smile said more than any witness ever could. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. Guilty on every major count. The judge ordered Qley to pay restitution for the damage, reimburse a significant portion of my legal expenses, and sentenced her according to the convictions. The two men received their own sentences for participating in the scheme. A few months later, I finally finished repairing the house. Fresh floors, new furniture, new office. The only thing I couldn't replace was my father's old leather briefcase. A local craftsman restored what he could. The scars from the knife cuts are still visible. I asked him not to remove them. They're a reminder, not of Qley, but of the lesson my father tried to teach me years earlier. Protect what you've built. For a long time, I thought a prenup was about expecting the worst. Now I understand it was never about money. It was about discovering how someone reacts when fairness enters the conversation. The woman I wanted to marry wasn't exposed by the prenup itself. She was exposed by what she was willing to do to avoid signing one. In the end, she didn't destroy my future. She saved me from marrying the wrong person before it was too late.